FZero for the Super Nintendo. What a great game. Originally released in November of 1990 as a launch title for the Super Nintendo, it went on to sell a few million copies and spawned arguably the greatest racing series of all time. It's been well over 30 years since its release now, and the game still holds up well. It retains a small but strong speedrun player base, and it feels like it's the only FZero game Nintendo consistently acknowledges exists. If you've seen my channel recently, you've probably noticed I've been posting a whole lot of this game from my phone. It is honestly probably my favorite overall game to speedrun and time trial, and in this video I'm going to explain why I think FZero for the Super Nintendo still holds up incredibly well. The charm for this game starts before you even turn on the console. Really, the manual for the original FZero is one of my favorites to sift through. One of the game's neat innovations comes from having an actual story to tell for a racing game. Sort of. It all comes from this manual. What is FZero? In the latter half of the 20th century, mankind was gripped by the fear of being invaded by extraterrestrials. They refer to extraterrestrial spacecraft as UFOs. Now to those of us in this day and age, that sounds like a fairy tale. It is now the year 2560, and due to the human race's countless encounters with alien life forms throughout the universe, Earth's social framework has expanded to cosmic proportions. Now, trade, technology, transfer, and cultural interchange are carried out on an interplanetary basis. The multi-billionaires who earn their enormous wealth through intergalactic trade, while satisfied with their rich lifestyles, also yearn for a new entertainment to stimulate their lazy lives. Their wishes were met by a call for a new project based upon a seemingly simple premise. Why not hold, on a galactic scale, some competition like the F1 races once held on Earth centuries ago? In time, winning this race meant earning the highest honor that could be bestowed on anyone in the universe. In a very short time, people came to call this Grand Prix simply FZero. It's nothing fancy, but it is nice to have, and the manual only gets better. It does all the manual stuff of telling you how to play the game, but with some nice bonuses too. There's a small bio for each of the game's 4 playable characters: Captain Falcon, Dr. Stewart, Samurai Goro, and Pico, as well as a brief description of how their vehicles work with some absolutely kick-ass art. Seriously, this manual has a ton of unique art pieces that all look incredible. The real centerpiece, however, is a short comic at the end detailing the story of Captain Falcon. It's really cool despite how short it is, because Captain Falcon was originally supposed to be the mascot for the Super Nintendo. Though that didn't quite pan out, it's still a fun read regardless. It's one of the few times we see him do some actual bounty hunting in the series, and it gives some sort of tension for when you start the game, which the manual tells you to do if you want to see the story continue. When you boot up the game, you are greeted with 2 gameplay modes: Grand Prix and Practice Mode. You select one of the 4 pilots in their machines: the Blue Falcon, the Golden Fox, the Fire Stingray, or the Wild Goose. You pick a cup and a difficulty class, and you're off to race. There are 3 different leagues, basically cups, and they all have 5 tracks each. In each track, the race starts off slow, with just you and the 3 other controllable drivers, so you can get a basic understanding of the track. From lap 2 onwards, AI drivers will spawn randomly on the track that you must dodge and race against to stay in the front. Repeat until the end of the 5th lap, which is where the race ends. The AI isn't the only thing you have to avoid though. On the course itself there might be hazards such as mines or ice that the player will have to avoid. Coupled with the AI machines, races can get quite hectic. When hitting a hazard or a guardrail, your machine will lose energy, which is essentially your health, run out of energy, and your machine explodes. There are also big jump plates on the track that you can use to take small and big shortcuts alike, but if you mess this up, you may go boom. At the completion of every lap, you get what is called a Super Jet, which is basically like a mushroom in Mario Kart. It's a one-time boost that you can use anywhere on the track. It will last for a few seconds and you will go at really fast speeds, way higher than your machine's top speed. Controls for the game are intuitive, especially if you're playing on an SNES controller like what was intended. B accelerates, A boosts, and Y brakes. The D-pad steers the machine, and the 2 shoulder buttons lean in the direction that they are in. That's it. It's a very intuitive setup that is easy to learn. The distance between the face buttons is small enough that you can boost or do a tight brake in a pinch without having to let go of the accelerator. Your other thumb is going to be on the D-pad constantly, and your other fingers are going to be resting on the shoulder buttons. It is a very simple setup. The controls play into the simplicity of the game. There's no big gimmick, and they feel natural for the 4 different machines. Speaking of, each machine has their own differences to make them distinct from each other, both visually and functionally. The Blue Falcon is a basic all-rounder with decent speed, acceleration, and cornering. The Golden Fox is a monster at accelerating and churning. but has the worst top speed of the game. The Wild Goose has decent top speed, but has a lot of energy/health, which makes it able to withstand the most amount of punishment during a race. And the Fire Stingray has the highest top speed in the game by far, but the worst acceleration and handling, normally. FZero is fast. In between avoiding obstacles and taking shortcuts, you need to constantly stay in front of the AI drivers. Dropping below certain placements in the laps will result in a game over. The placement you need to be in or above gets higher and higher with each passing lap, indicated on the hub. After completing a Grand Prix, you are taken to a newly unlocked record screen where you can see your fastest 5-lap runs, as well as your fastest overall lap for any of the courses. You go back to the main title screen, and yeah, that is the core of the gameplay. You do all 3 Grand Prix, and you've basically experienced almost all the game has to offer. There is one unlockable difficulty, Master Mode, which speeds up the enemy AI with rubber banding and makes the spawning drivers much harder to avoid. And completing a Grand Prix on Master Mode gives you an unlockable bonus ending. Practice Mode is somewhat similar to Grand Prix. The main caveat is that the only other machine on the course is one of the 3 other playable pilots that you select. You could even have none at all. It is the best mode in the game for time trials, as you can breeze through the available tracks, listening to the awesome soundtrack for the game as you learn the shortcuts and perfect your lines, without having to worry about the other AI drivers getting in your way. There is one catch, however. Only 7 of the 15 playable courses are available in practice mode, so if you want to get the best times for all the courses, you're going to have to grind them out in the Grand Prix mode. Like other racing games, shaving time off your best records make up the bulk of the game's replayability. Unlike the rest of the games of the FZero series though, there's not a set of highly advanced techniques that are very hard to execute. The game really only has 2 advanced techniques, and one does not really matter until you start competing for top level times. It is the most simple game in the series, all about how well you can control your machine and race line while going fast. How well you have mastered your fundamental skill, coupled with being able to execute and not make even a slight error, will determine if you get a new personal best or not. Since it is so simple, even the littlest of errors can have direct consequences. This pressure you're put under is amplified when you're not playing any of the non-practice mode tracks trying to get better times. The AI drivers are going to spawn in and they're going to get in your way. You're going to have to adjust your line and strategy accordingly to not lose time, or at least lose as little time as possible if you have to change course. The AI do spawn randomly, but it is a legitimate skill to dodge them. There are very little, if any, times where they are truly unavoidable. There is always something the player can do. It could definitely be annoying at first, having to dodge and avoid the other machines that spawn in, but get well enough at it, and you can start getting really big time saves on records. This simple gameplay loop of having to avoid the AI drivers while still going as fast as possible makes up a great portion of the game's replayable gameplay. It is something you can consistently hone and improve in every time you race, and because of the random nature of their spawns, each run you do is different. You could have a race where the AI do not spawn on a vital part of the track and you could take your optimal line, but then on the next lap there could be an exploding AI directly in the way. You will then have to make your decision on how to avoid it without either getting hit by another obstacle or the walls while still going fast, and you really have to make this decision in under a second. It is difficult, but it is so fun to do. Each time you mess up it can be discouraging, sure, but then you learn what distance do I have to be at to avoid the driver next time? What direction should I go to swerve away? It's a gameplay system that constantly keeps you on your toes and keeps you engaged in the race that you're in. Once you get good enough at that, you start getting really good times, and you can start moving up time trial ladders and leaderboards online. FZero Central is the main hub for all the FZero games' online time trial leaderboards, and the Super Nintendo game is no different. It is actually one of the biggest leaderboards on the website. The ladder tracks 30 unique submissions, your best 5-lap time for each course, and your fastest lap on each course. Sadly, due to outside circumstances, FZero Central is not taking any new submissions right now, but fortunately there are other ways to track your times. In the description of this video, I've included a link to a Google spreadsheet where you can personally track your best times, not just for the Fire Stingray, which is the best machine in the game for time trials, but the other 3 machines as well. The format for the spreadsheet itself comes from one the FZero community maintains to keep track of the best known times for the entire game. I just emptied it out for you. Feel free to download it or make a copy of the spreadsheet for yourself to fill out. After all, there are 120 unique times to keep track of now, so you'll be quite busy if you decide to fill it out. If that's not your type of thing, speedrun.com tracks full game and full cup runs as well for all 4 machines. The leaderboard is smaller, but it is just as intense. I myself have only started to dabble in these kinds of runs, which should give you an indication of just how replayable this game can really be. On top of the already fun gameplay, the soundtrack is just as awesome. For a first outing on 16-bit hardware, Nintendo really hit it out of the park. Up to this point in the video, I have only used songs from the game. You of course have classics like Reed City and Big Blue, but all the songs in this game are awesome. They fit the track they are played on, and it's just a blast to listen to them as you blaze through the races. Some of my personal favorites in the game are Silence, Big Blue, and Port Town. And of course, Firefield. FZero as a series is known for its deep technical gameplay, but the original outing on the Super Nintendo does not have that. Instead, it has a simple and easy to learn, but just as fast and intense gameplay that is timeless. The game always takes you back to your record page every time you finish a league, showing if any of your times that you just got even make it into the top 10. It's asking you to come back and do better, to keep racing and improving. Some people might see it as a detriment, but the simple yet challenging, fun gameplay of the first FZero game is infinitely replayable. It has players on multiple different Nintendo consoles coming back for more every time, and it will continue to do so into the future. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. And now for an unscripted part of the video. Hopefully, on the day that this video uploads, which should be September 29th, it will be 5 years to the day that I first played the original FZero game. Now, I didn't really have a special history with the series beforehand. I had played GX a lot casually, and I was just starting to get into the time trial scene of that game when the Super Nintendo Classic came out, and my dad picked it up at Best Buy, and I wanted to try it out, and hey, F-Zero is one of the games, let me play it, see how it was. In between that time, 2017 to now, I played the games on and off, but recently, within the last 2 years or so, I started gravitating a lot toward the Super Nintendo game, and I started to play it and started to get really into it. And I met a lot of people in the F-Zero community that were awesome. They pushed me both as a player to improve and get better times, but also people that inspired me to make some video content like what I'm doing right now. So on the screen right now, I'm going to have a list of people, kind of like a special thanks, that I've interacted with the community that left a positive impact on me. If your name's not up there and we're close and I just somehow forgot you, don't fret just yet. This video is not just a celebration of my 5-year anniversary for first playing the Super Nintendo game, but it is also a trial run for a future F-Zero video that I want to make that's way more grand. So as well, on another note, hopefully by the time this uploads, I will be in the top 30 all-time for the F-Zero SNES ladder on FZeroCentral.com. Right now I'm right there at 31st, but I'm going to try and get a PB while recording footage for this that will hopefully push me into the top 30. Regardless, thank you once again for watching this video. If you liked it, leave a like, subscribe if you haven't. Really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time.